deal with because there's bigger issues, and you got to just at least address these huge gaping holes. With this pastor, there's such an issue of his character and of his walk with God that the Lord can't even get around to dealing with how's he leading the church. It would even seem to, I believe, imply that he's not leading the church at all. This is the church of the Laodiceans. It's the church of the people. The people are running the church. Maybe it's a deacon-run church or something like that. But it's certain. It's not. This guy's not doing his job. That is definite. This man is not doing his job. First job of a pastor, obviously, is for he himself to walk with the Lord and to have a right heart with the Lord. He's not doing that. We're not even going to get into how much of a mess the church may or may not be in. He doesn't even know that with that. He's just going to deal directly with this man. And again, as I pointed out many times, there's no way that he's referring to the entire church. This is not a corporate rebuke. He didn't say, I know your works, that you are neither cold. You and ye is plural. Thee is singular. It means one person. I know thy works. He's speaking to one man. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. So, those words, cold or hot, lukewarm, I think are possibly some of the most misunderstood and misapplied words in the whole Bible. There's a classic case of, we talked about eisegesis when we were in hermeneutics, reading into a passage, something that's not there. When we read this, 9 times out of 10, you're reading a word into that passage that's not there, and the word is hearted. He did not say cold-hearted. And there's no such thing as hot-hearted. That's not a thing. When we talk about lukewarm Christianity, that's loosely based on this passage of Scripture, but that is not what this is saying. When we say lukewarm in modern terms, what we're saying is that somebody is indifferent, they don't care. That is not what this is talking about. Not even close. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. This is not the temperature of his heart. Nor did he say, toward me. So people will read into this passage that he was cold-hearted toward Jesus, or that he was hot-hearted toward Jesus. Again, hot-hearted is not a thing. We don't really use that one. But we really focus on lukewarm, toward Jesus, or toward the things of the Lord. He didn't say toward anything. We're reading that word into the passage. It does not belong there. He's not saying that he's cold-hearted towards something, or hot-hearted towards something, or lukewarm-hearted towards something. We utterly destroy the meaning of the passage when we do that. It actually leads us to make some pretty outrageously ridiculous statements at times. I've heard, probably my whole life, I've heard preachers, teachers that come across this passage, and they'll talk about it, and it says, when he says, I would that thou wert cold or hot, I've heard preachers say some version of this my whole life. Well, they'll say, it's amazing to me, it's incredible to me, that God actually would prefer you to be cold and hard-hearted toward him than indifferent. No, he would not. That is wrong. It's badly wrong. Being indifferent toward God is just one step toward the direction of being cold and hard. It is worse to be cold and hard-hearted to God. It's nonsense to say that it is better to be cold toward God, cold-hearted toward God, than it is to be lukewarm-hearted toward God. Those are not things. That's not what this is talking about. This is a metaphor about water, because he's speaking to a Laodicea. Laodicea had these aquifers, these aqueducts that brought in water, hot water from Hierapolis and cold water from Colossae. Except, especially the hot water, by the time it actually got there, it wasn't hot. 6 miles of aqueducts it would have to come down. It was lukewarm. And the hot water had medicinal sort of qualities. Hot water is good for you. And hot springs and things can have minerals in it that can be good for your health. But by the time it traveled down these pipes and it got there and it's cooled off and it's lukewarm, it's not helping anybody. It's actually just disgusting. So, if we can read these, it is so hard to undo eisegesis. It is really hard to undo. When you've read words into a passage in your heart and in your mind your entire lifetime, to unsee it is really difficult. But if we can try to read these words, what they actually say, and not what they've been twisted into, then we can learn what he's actually saying. Beginning in verse 15 again. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. The metaphor here is a drink of water. So, cold water is good. It's literally the opposite when people are like, oh, don't be cold. Cold is good in this context. Cold water is refreshing. It says, when the scripture talks about cold water, Proverbs 25:25, as cold waters to a thirsty soul, so is good news from a far country. Cold is good. Cold is not hard-hearted and cold toward God. That has nothing to do with this whatsoever. Cold water is refreshing, like good news from a far country. So this man isn't refreshing. He's not providing any good. He's not providing any refreshment. In the metaphor, if we stay strictly within the metaphor is that the Lord himself is taking a drink of water. If that cup of water were cold, I mean, you think about in Matthew 10:42, it talks about that if anybody gives one of the Lord's disciples a cup of cold water in his name, that they won't lose their reward. Cold water is a good thing. In Philemon, verse 7, it doesn't use the word cold water, but it talks about how he refreshes the bowels of the saints. There's something about being refreshing and just cool and comforting. Cold water is good. So the Lord, as he takes this sip of water, if it had been a cold cup of water, that would have been a good thing. Now, hot water can also be a good thing, especially if it's tea or coffee, right? Like you want that. You don't want that to be lukewarm. And if you're taking, especially if you're taking in hot water for medicinal, purposes or something like that, you want to, as you drink that in, you take that sip of water and it hits your tongue and it's hot. That's soothing. Like how many of us have been sick recently, right? How much hot tea, or even coffee? You got a sore throat or something. You go in and you drink. You got to cough. We've all coughed right now. Drank a lot of hot tea recently. It soothes. It's comforting. Hot is good. Hot water is good. It's useful. And that's the point. Cold water is useful. Hot water is useful. Lukewarm? No, it's disgusting. So what he says here is, I wish you were useful, son. I wish you were cold or that you were hot, but you're just nothing. You're lukewarm. I'm getting nothing from this. It's disgusting. I'm going to spew you out of my mouth. So in the metaphor, this pastor is a cup of water. And Jesus is taking a sip, and he's disgusted with what he finds. Not because the man is cool and indifferent toward God in his opinions. There's nothing to do. We have to just completely write that out of our minds when we're reading this passage. It has nothing to do with it whatsoever. It's the fact that this man is worthless. He's not doing his job. He is the angel of the church of the Laodiceans. He is the messenger. He's the one that at the beginning, when Jesus talked about in that vision, what he showed John, he talked about that I've got the 7 candlesticks. Those are the 7 churches. The church of the Laodiceans is one of those golden candlesticks, right there by the side of the Lord. In the hand of the Lord are the 7 stars, which are the 7 angels of the churches, the messengers, the guardians, the